Okay.
Shema Israel, Yahweh Hanu, Yahweh Echad, V'yavtevet Yalheka, Kol Vekliv, Kol Shekliv, Kol Maladeka. Here Israel, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you should Yahweh your Elohim with all heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength.
All right, that was Jake. Okay. Well, last week's message was entitled End Time what was it exactly? End Time Events as Seen by Yahshua and Paul, right? And so this week I want to talk about End Time Signs and Events. So what's the difference? Well, you'll see. Here we are. This is September the 26th, 2015, and we just think we're here. Oh, one of the things that I missed last week was telling you about the planet that was supposed to come. What was the name of that thing? Neveru? Neberu or Neveru? Neberu, and what was supposed to happen with that?
Oh, I don't know. I just keep hearing stuff.
Oh, well, you know, the big comet was supposed to hit on Thursday. And it was supposed to be the end of the universe. Anybody hear that besides those of you that heard me last week? You could find it on the internet. We're not supposed to be here. So maybe we're not really here. And the rapture was supposed to occur on Wednesday so that the true believers wouldn't have to be here when the universe wasn't here anymore. But look at here we are. So the rapture didn't occur on Wednesday. And is the rapture ever going to? Where is the word rapture in the scriptures? It isn't there, is it? It's not there. Now, I'll show you a couple of scriptures where people make this conclusion. And I want to go back to this writing of Shaul to the Thessalonians in chapter 5 of 1 Thessalonians. Because what I really want to answer today is, why did Shaul say, when Yeshua said that the end would come as a thief in the night, Peter says it'll come as a thief in the night, and Shaul says it'll come as a thief in the night, but why isn't it going to come as a thief in the night to believers? That's the real question I want to answer today. 1 Thessalonians 5:2, Shaul said to the Thessalonians, "For you yourselves know very well that the day of Yahweh comes as a thief in the night." Well, how were they supposed to know that? In 2 Peter, we're going to go back to that verse, those verses in Thessalonians, chapter 5. But first of all, Peter said in verse 10 of chapter 3 of 2 Peter, "But the day of Yahweh shall come as a thief in the night." Well, he assumes that they know that it's supposed to come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with intense heat, and the earth and the works that are in it shall be burned up. And I guess that's the end of the universe that happened on Thursday. And it sure did come as a thief in the night to me. Did it come as a thief in the night to you? I also read on the internet, you can read anything on the internet, that there are some 309, that might not be the exact number, millionaires. You didn't even know there were that many here, did you? In the United States that suddenly disappeared. And their bank accounts are still full. They didn't take their money with them. And I believe they said also that there really are 10 times that many regular Americans who are not millionaires who also disappeared. And they don't know where all those people went. Of course, in this article, they said it was reported in the New York Times, but I didn't see it on the news, the regular news. This was just an article. but they said they don't know where they went, and all their bank accounts and all their stuff is still there, but they just disappeared. Now, the only thing about it is that shows that it's not the rapture is because they took their clothes with them that they were wearing. Because in the rapture, weren't their clothes supposed to be piled where they were standing? Isn't that what the rapture people teach mostly? Anyway, so they have that story out there. Well, Peter said it was going to happen. The only problem is we're still going on, and the earth hasn't been cleansed by fire. So that's kind of not what happened. Yahshua says in Matthew chapter 24, we're going to go there several times today. He says about the end times. He gives a whole scenario which is very important, and we're going to go back to it because those are the signs, the end time signs and events from the mouth of Yahshua. We did read them last week, but I want to show you them from another place where Yahshua revealed them. Same things. But he says in verse 38, "For as they were in the days before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, and until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and they did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also shall the coming of the Son of Adam be. Then," is this the rapture? "Two shall be in the field. The one is taken and the other one is left." That's what rapture people say. The only problem with that, their view is that the one taken is the one that was raptured away. And that's not what the Hebrew means. It means one dies and the other one is left. Taken is to be dead. It's not to be raptured away somewhere. It's just not there, and you're not going to find it in all of these events that we're going to see from Yeshua's own mouth. "Two shall be grinding at the mill, and the one dies grinding at the mill." They're taken. Their life is taken, and the other one is left. He says in verse 42, "Watch therefore." By the way, does anybody need a highlighter so you can highlight some of this stuff? If you need a highlighter, there's some over here, and I can have one of the boys bring you one. Anybody need one? Okay. We're good here, we say. "Watch, therefore." That should be highlighted or underlined. "For you do not know what hour your master is coming. And know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched." I mean, that's logical, isn't it? If somebody reveals to you that at midnight somebody's going to break into your house and steal all your valuables, are you going to do something about it ahead of time? I would think you would. That's what he say. That's what Yeshua says is the logical response, and not allowed his house to be broken into. "Because of this, be ready, for the Son of Adam is coming in an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is a trustworthy and wise servant whom his master set over his household to give them food in his season?" In other words, who is it? Who is the one that is going to stand guard and make sure the thief does not break through, does not come like a thief in the night, unaware, because you're aware of it? And he says, verse 46, "Blessed is that servant whom his master, having come, shall find so doing." Find so doing. That ought to be highlighted or underlined, because that's the key. That is the answer, as we're going to see. Now go back in Thessalonians again, where Paul says it's going to come as a thief in the night, but he says in verse 4, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and verse 4, "But you, Achim," and that's brothers and sisters, because the word Achim in Hebrew can be translated brothers, but it also includes females. It's males and females. You, Achim, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. For you are all the sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness, so then we should not sleep as others do. Sometimes sleep is a symbol of death, and in this case it's kind of a symbolic death because it's not really talking about being, having your life taken from you. I was sitting on the deck this morning. I'm coming back to the scripture, but let me just interject this. I was sitting on, and I've done this many times, early in the morning, first thing, take my cup of coffee out and talk to Yahweh and sit on the deck. And I hear two worlds out there when I'm sitting on my deck. I feed the birds, so I've got lots of birds singing, and if the birds aren't singing, then I'm a little concerned, but sometimes they aren't. But usually the birds are singing, and there's that world that Yahweh has created as his wonderful creation. And then what do you suppose the other world is that I hear? The freeway is 2 miles away. Highway 87 is not even a mile, it's a quarter of a mile away. And I hear all these cars whizzing and trucks on the interstate, and it's just a buzz out there. And it's just like a different world that's out there. You know what that world is? That's the world of darkness. Because those people who are out there, and especially like today on the Sabbath, they're out there doing their business. Hustle, bustle, noise, cacophony. And those people are in darkness because they are out there trampling all over Kadosh time, that Yahweh made Kadosh. And he's never changed it. He never changed it. He never ever said, well, let's take this Kadosh time, something that Yahweh made set apart, and let's move it to Sunday. Let's move it to the first day of the week. He never did that. This is the day that is Kadosh, set apart by Yahweh. Not tomorrow. This is the day, the seventh day Sabbath, which has never been lost. So there it is, those two worlds out there. That's a world of darkness. And that world is out there every morning because those people haven't got a clue why they're here. Or if they have a clue, it's a lie. It's the wrong clue. They're not here to live to go to heaven. They're here to live to build character so they can inherit what Yahweh promised to Abraham. And that knowledge and that truth that we have is what really makes us in the light. It puts us in the light so that we don't have to... Were you worried about the prophecies of that meteorite hitting the earth on Thursday? I mean, I told you about it last week. And I didn't tell you it in reverence, did I? I kind of told it to you in tongue-in-cheek and ridicule. And I'll show you why we could do that with confidence and not be blaspheming Yahweh in any way, shape, or form. Because we absolutely knew by the way we live, by this living word, that couldn't possibly happen. It couldn't possibly happen that way. And we have the words of Yahshua to reassure us. So we should not sleep as others do, but we should watch and be sober. Those who sleep, sleep at night. Those who get drunk are drunk at night. But we who are of the day should be sober, notice this probably should be underlined or highlighted, putting on the breastplate of belief and love, and we know that belief means shemuna, obedience. It's not belief like in the Western sense, where you just have a Twitter in your heart, and love, not the kind of love that the world has, but love is keeping the commandments of Yahweh. That's the definition of love in the Scripture. And as a helmet, the expectation of deliverance. We absolutely know where our deliverance is going to come from, and we know, because of what we're going to read, we know how it's going to come to pass. Because Elohim did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain deliverance through our Master Yeshua Messiah, who died for us so that we, whether we're awake or asleep, when he comes, 1 Corinthians 15, the dead in Messiah shall rise first, and then we shall join them in the air. There we will ever be with him, and he's not going to be in heaven. His feet shall stand in that day, Zechariah chapter 14, on the Mount of Olives, which is still a physical mountain over there in the Middle East. And the ones who are closest to it right now are Brian and Johnny. They're a lot closer to it, that physical presence, than we are. That we, whether awake or asleep, should live together with him. And this is where he's going to live. We're going to see that at the end also. So why does Shaul then say that those times should not overtake believers as a thief? Those believing Yeshua's own words, Matthew 24 and in Revelation, will understand the order of events that must precede the return of Yeshua and the end of the age. If you believe, and if you keep the commandments of Yeshua, and if you believe what he said, if you believe his words, then you know that these wild prophecies that come about cannot be true. You can be absolutely assured of it. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 6. Revelation, chapter 6. Whose words do we read in the book of Revelation? No, not John's words. They're the words of Yeshua that Yeshua gave to John. So they are the words of Yeshua. And whose words did Matthew record in Matthew 24 when the disciples went to Yeshua and they asked him, what will be the sign of your coming? Whose words were then recorded? Yeshua's words. Yeshua's own words. So the Yeshua that opens these seals in the book of Revelation is the same Yeshua who told his disciples what to watch for. Isn't it? And does Yeshua change? Malachi says, I am Yahweh, I change not. And in that case, it was Yeshua speaking. Yahweh the Father doesn't change either, but Yeshua doesn't change. He said in Matthew 5:17, don't think I came to destroy the law or the prophets. The law that I gave, the prophets that I inspired, I didn't come to destroy. I came to show you the completeness of it. No, he didn't change. So, Revelation chapter 6. Here are the seals being opened. You'll recall just prior to this, John sees these sealed scrolls. They've got seals on them. And the question is asked, who can open these seals? And the answer, simply, is only Yeshua, who was slain. Revelation 6:1. So he says, I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, come and see. And I looked, and I saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. What does this white horse and its rider symbolize? Do you know, I've read some of the same information on the Stewartton Bible School webpage, and a lot of it is extremely good. In fact, I've included some of their summary here. But the guy who preached a sermon about the same kind of thing says that this is the truth, because it's a white horse. It's the truth going out, going forth, and conquering around the world. Now, has anybody ever heard that before? Anybody ever been taught that? This symbolizes Yahshua taking the truth around the world, overcoming and to conquer. In Matthew, here you'll have to turn in your scriptures unless you trust my reading. Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24. Yahshua says, he sat upon the Mount of Olives in verse 3, and in verse 4, answering, he said to them, take heed that no one leads you astray, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they shall lead many astray. So what does Yahshua tell his disciples in Matthew 24 is the first sign? False religion. Now, how could you determine from Matthew or from Revelation here, when you see the white horse, how could you determine that this is false religion and not true religion? What weapon does Yahshua, what weapon do the scriptures always show Yahshua wielding? A what? A sword. Do you notice that this rider doesn't have a sword? He has a bow. Notice that? This is not Yahshua. This is false religion. So, in two places, Yahshua tells his disciples that false religion would be one of the first signs of his coming, because that's what he's giving here in Matthew 24. And when he opens the seals to John in Revelation chapter 6, and of course, man put the chapters there, but if they weren't there, it would be a little harder to explain to you exactly where we were, right? So he says the first sign is false religion. Now, is that coincidence? Let's look at the next horse. When he opened, so you can actually, I've got some scriptures in there. Matthew 10:34. Let's see what that says. Matthew 10:34. I believe that's Yahshua with a sword. Matthew 10:34. Do not think I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a bow. No, doesn't say that, does it? Yahshua came to bring a sword. Why would he be wielding a bow here if this was Yahshua? Ephesians, I've got Ephesians 6 there. It tells you what the armor of Yahweh is. You know, the whole armor of Yahweh has a sword, but it has no bow. The truth is dispensed with a sword. A sword, but not a bow. Not a bow. And in, let's see, I got another one. Oh, a couple of more. Revelation 2:12, Revelation 19:15. You read those scriptures, and they will, you read those scriptures and you say, well, this is obvious that this is, Yeshua's talking about the same thing, and it's false religion. It's not the truth. It's false religion. And it didn't happen very long after he died, did it? It started happening almost immediately. So that horse went out to ride. Is that horse done riding yet? Still riding. The rider's still riding it. Okay. Next verse. Verse 3, Revelation 6:3. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, come and see. And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was given to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that they should slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. Matthew 24, 6 and 7. What's the next sign? Yahshua tells his disciples in Matthew 24, standing on the mount, the first sign is going to be false religion, false teachers. The second sign, in verse 6, you shall begin to hear of fightings, reports of fightings. See that you are not troubled, for these have to take place, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, reign against reign. There shall be, and then, stop right there. What does that sound like? Doesn't that sound like exactly what the fiery horse symbolizes? War. War. Slaying one another. A sword given to him. Fighting. Nation against nation. Is it coincidence that that's the second sign? In both places. Why would it be coincidence when this is the same individual speaking? See that? All right. Revelation 6 and verse 5. He opened the third seal, and I heard the living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked, and I saw a black horse, and he who sat on it, holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a day's wage, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage, and do not harm the oil and the wine." What is that symbolizing? Do you get what that symbology is? It's about scarcity of food, about the high price. You know, they're predicting that bread is going to be, what, $20 a loaf, and so on and so forth. That could happen. That could happen. It did happen in Germany in the Depression, World War II. Now look at what Yahshua says. He has the wars, the fightings. See that you're not troubled. These have to take place. And then he says in the middle of verse 7, and remember now men put these chapters and verses together. So really, there is really a separation here. There shall be scarcities of food. It's the third thing that Yahshua mentions to his disciples, and it is the third seal in the book of Revelation. From the same mouth, the mouth of Yahshua. Scarcities of food, famines. Chapter 6 of Revelation and verse 7. He opened the fourth seal, and I heard the voice of 4 living creatures saying, "Come and see." And I looked, and I saw a pale horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death. Oh, by the way, are there wars still? Is the red horse and the rider still riding? Are there still scarcities of food? Not so much here, but in lots of places on the face of the earth. And I mean, you know, China with their 2 billion people or whatever they have, Africa is loaded with scarcities of food. That horse is riding. That horse is still riding. So here we have the white horse riding with false religion. And still riding is the white horse when the red horse rides with war, and still riding when those two horses are riding is the pale horse. They're all riding together. They're all riding. And what does Yahshua say the next sign is? Deadly diseases. Deadly diseases. Is that coincidence from the mouth of Yahshua that these things are exactly in the same order? Exactly in the same order. And they're still riding. They're still riding, all of them. All of the horses are still riding. And then he says, I looked, I saw this pale horse, and death was with him. And actually, pale horse, that could be a green horse. The Greek word and the Hebrew word that parallels it, it could be green horse. And we've kind of examined this when we studied the book of Revelation before. And green is the color of what? Islam. Every nation that has Islam as their major religion has green in their flag. And do they bring death? Why are refugees trying to flock out of Syria today? Is this horse riding? Yeah, this horse is riding. And authority was given to them over 1/4 of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. So here we have 4 seals opened up in the book of Revelation, and they correspond to the first 4 signs that Yahshua told his disciples in Matthew 24. Same things. Now it gets more interesting. Now these things they all happen concurrently, which you know what that means, all together. You know, when one starts, the other one begins. The first one doesn't stop. The second one goes. The third one comes. The first two are still going. The fourth one comes. So they're all going at once. And I think it's pretty obvious that all four of the seals from the book of Revelation chapter 6 are open. They're all open. Now, Yahshua keeps talking about some signs in the book of Matthew 24, but here in Revelation, now we're going to see a little bit of a break. Because now we see there was given in verse 11, well, verse 10, verse 9, because this is where it says the fifth seal is open. The fifth seal is open. I saw under the altar the beings of those having been slain for the word of Elohim and for the witness which they held. And they cried out with a loud voice. And of course, if they're dead, they can't cry out. This is symbolic. This is only symbolism here. But this is, what does Yahshua say the next thing is? He talks about earthquakes, which we are going to see that. He says in verse 8 of Matthew 24, these are the beginning of birth pains. Then they shall deliver you up to afflict you and kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many stumble, and they shall deliver up one another and shall hate one another. That sounds like persecution to me. And that sounds like the fifth seal. The fifth seal. Because these people have been killed for the testimony of Yahshua. And he says in verse 6, or verse 11 of chapter 6, there was given to each one a white robe, and they were told that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellows and their brothers, who would be killed as they were, was completed. So this is another thing that is ongoing. And we can identify some of that as having taken place, can't we? The Spanish Inquisition and things like it, the Hitler's pogroms, lots of, but it's not complete. It's not ended yet. And I don't know how many beheadings there were in the Spanish Inquisition, probably more likely in France. But there are going to be beheadings, because this says who are beheaded. And who does beheadings? The green monster, Islam. So it's continuing, and it's not complete yet. So we can identify all of these first five as beginning, these first five seals, and that they are still ongoing, and maybe as far as the fifth seal is concerned, the worst is yet to come. But Yahshua said all of these things in Matthew 24. He warned his disciples that all of these things were signs of his coming. But he said, it's only the beginning. It's not yet. Revelation 6 and verse 12. And he mentions the earthquake in Matthew. He mentions earthquakes. He says earthquakes in chapter 24 and verse 7 of Matthew. But here he says in Revelation 6:12, I looked, and when he opened the sixth seal, I saw a great earthquake, and the sun became black. Now, we've had lots of earthquakes. And if you lived in San Francisco, you'd say, well, we've had the big earthquake, right? Or maybe in China, where they've lost hundreds of thousands of people in earthquakes. But this has to do with Yahweh's people, with with Jacob, with Israel. I don't think we've seen this great earthquake that's been worldwide, to shake the earth worldwide. I don't think we've seen this seal opened yet. We've had eclipses of the sun. Do you think eclipses of the sun qualify as the sun became black? I don't think so. I'll tell you what qualifies more as the sun becoming black is the darkness that hit Egypt during the Exodus. But the world hasn't experienced that. And even with an eclipse, the world doesn't experience an eclipse. You can only see it in a very small section of the world. And here's one. The moon became as blood. So guess what? Next week. No, it's not next. Well, yeah, it is next week, isn't it? When they have their fourth triad. They think that that's the blood moon. That's a natural phenomenon, just like an eclipse is. When Yahweh does these signs, they aren't going to be natural. It's going to be supernatural. And it's not going to be in one little section of the earth where I can't remember now. I had this in a message about the blood moons, where this last one is going to be visible, and I don't think it's in Israel. I'm not even sure it's here, but it's only in a little section of the earth as the sun and the moon are going around. It's not worldwide. When these signs happen, these are going to be worldwide. A worldwide earthquake, a worldwide blackening out of the sun, a worldwide blooding of the moon. It's going to be worldwide. So I don't think this seal has happened yet, and I don't think it's going to happen next week. Though we have the first evidence of the first 5 signs taking place, seals being opened, this is the next one to be opened. But notice what happens. Now, we'll find out. We'll find out next week. The stars of the heaven fell to the earth. That could be a gigantic meteor shower that, to a vision that John saw might look like stars falling to the earth if it was a great big meteor shower. But it's going to be massive. And it's going to be all over. It's not just going to be in one little local location. As a fig tree drops its unripe fruit, it begins being shaken by a strong wind. And heaven departed like a scroll, being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. This hasn't happened. It has not happened. So when this happens, you will know it. You will know it. And these days won't come on you as a thief in the night, because you know what Yahshua says in the Scripture. And you won't be flying off the handle by every little wind of doctrine when they say, here it is, or there it is, because you'll know that the whole earth has to be shaken. You'll know that it has to be a massive thing. And look at what happens. The sovereigns in verse 15 of the earth, and the great ones, and the rich ones, and the commanders, and the mighty, and every slave, and every free one, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains. Now we know that there are some fortresses that are built under the ground. This is where they're going to go. But they haven't gone there yet, unless those 309 millionaires went there. But I don't know what qualified them to go. The only problem is they went a little early, because nobody's quaking, are they? So if there is any truth to that story, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? When probably more than 50% of the people, especially in the Western world, don't even believe in their God, let alone believe in Yahweh and in the word of Yahweh, I just don't see how this could happen. That they're all going to... It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen without a big shaking, is it? It's just not going to happen. So, in summary, here's how these seals go then. Here's a little summary. The first seal, a white horse symbolizing the advance of false religion and worship. That's running. A red horse symbolizing war, revolution, and bloodshed. That's running. That rider and its horse are running. A black horse symbolizing famines worldwide. It started to run. It hasn't reached its apex yet, because we really don't have famine worldwide. Now, in some senses, even though some of us are well-endowed flesh-wise. We do have a famine because we have a famine of nutrition. So in that sense, we have some of that nutrition worldwide, even here. Because, everything that we can find in the grocery store is either GMO, pesticided, or herbicided, or, some form of adulteration. But not really. I mean, we're not hungry like we're going to be on the Day of Atonement on October 22nd, right? October 22nd. Okay, but this horse is running in places. It's just not worldwide yet, but it's not reached its apex. And the pale horse, symbolizing disease epidemics, it's running. It's out there running. The fifth seal, souls under the altar, symbolizing further persecution. The events under these 5 seals have already begun. As each horse enters the scene, earlier riders continue on the course. In other words, when the last rider joins the field, which we think he already has, all the 4 horses are running over the earth at the same time. And sometimes it seems like they're getting closer to the finish line than other times. The 6th seal. I don't think this has happened. The sun goes out, the moon turns red, meteorites in their thousands are seen, or stars falling. The sky is rolled back. There is a great global earthquake which shakes every mountain and every island on earth. These events cause worldwide panic. I haven't seen any worldwide panic. The events under this seal have obviously not yet occurred. For never has mankind run to the rocks and mountains to hide from him who sits on the throne of the universe. The 144,000 first fruits of Yahweh, Revelation 7, are finally, during this 6th seal, all sealed. In other words, this sealing work has also not been completed, though I believe that it has also started. Because when I see in the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter, the names of those people who have it made, if you will, Abraham, Isaac, David, the ones that are named there, it's not very many, but I believe that those people have to be part of the first fruits. And that's what the 144,000 are. So I believe this sealing actually started way earlier, and what Yahshua is talking about here is the completion of it. It has to be completed. Now, the Stewartson people will tell you that this hasn't started yet. Well, I think Hebrews the 11th chapter shows us that it has. So the first fruits are finally all sealed during this seal. This is the end, the completion of this project. Revelation 7 and Revelation 14. The 144,000 are sealed and signed by the Ruach with Yahweh's name, which represents his character, his law, his absolute set-apartness, his loving kindness, his mercy, his truth. To repeat, this sealing work is still not completed. Revelation chapter 7. And after this, so here are 6 seals. We still have 1 more to go, don't we? There is a 7th seal. But we can't possibly have had the 7th seal because the 6th one's not done. And we're going to talk a little bit more about things that happen in the 6th and the 7th seal when we talk about angels and messengers next week and the week after. Revelation 7:1. After this I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the risings of the sun, holding the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea. Now, we're doing a pretty good job of harming the earth and the sea. We haven't got honest enough scientists to give us a report about how bad the Pacific Ocean is as a result of the meltdown of Fukushima. But I'm sure that it has given it a good start. Verse 3, Revelation 7. Do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads. Who are those servants? Those are the 144,000. Those are the ones for whose sake Yahweh is holding back the rest of the sixth seal and the seventh seal. How long does Yahweh have to hold that back? See, we knowing this sequence of events here, that's our next question. That's our next wonder. That's our next sign that Yahweh hasn't sealed the 144,000 yet. But when it does happen, then all this other stuff is going to go swoosh. And it'll happen pretty quickly. But we know these things. So we are not going to be disturbed by 4 blood moons supposedly on the Jewish high days, festivals, when the Jews don't even follow the calendar that's in the scripture. They follow what Rabbi says. So they're calendars of men. And these things could have been predicted hundreds of years ago, because these are regularly occurring natural phenomenon based on how Yahweh has set the heavenly bodies in motion. And when the signs are real and worldwide, it isn't going to come as a natural progression of Yahweh's heavenly bodies, but it's going to be supernatural. So this following now is a summary from the Stuart and Bible College in Scotland. It's right from Scripture with a little bit of interjection here and there, especially at the end of the seventh seal. And of course, they're using, and as you'll see some scriptures as we go through here, Revelation 9, but they're starting in chapter 7, and then they're going through these next few chapters that tell you what's going to happen in the seventh seal, when the seventh seal is open. The seventh seal is subdivided into 7 trumpets. The first 4 trumpets hurt the trees. We haven't heard that trumpet yet because Yahweh is still holding back the winds, because the sealing of the 144,000 has not been completed. They hurt the trees, the oceans, the rivers, and the solar system. The first trumpet, 1/3 of the trees and all the grass is burned. Now, some might look at the wildfires in California and say, well, we got to start on that. If it continues, it's possible that could be the start of it. The second trumpet, 1/3 of the sea became like the blood of a dead man. Even with what we've got out there, pollution unknown, undocumented in the Pacific Ocean, we have our own little pollution pit down here called the Gulf of Mexico, where I think most of our pollution is sitting at the bottom of the Gulf. But it still doesn't qualify for being like the blood of a dead man. The Atlantic has plenty of pollution, probably less than those other 2 areas. But that hasn't happened. That's the second trumpet. The third trumpet, 1/3 of all river water becomes undrinkable. Now, that's besides what man has done to pollute the river waters. You know, dumping sewage, dumping industrial wastes. I mean, we're still able to filter a lot of that out, and it's still drinkable. Not real safe, but drinkable. So that hasn't happened. Fourth trumpet. The sun, moon, and stars are darkened by 1/3. That hasn't happened. And this 4th blood moon that's coming up doesn't begin to qualify for that. The sun has to come first, by the way. You know, any blood moons that come before the darkening of the sun, It's just like in the calendar. The Son has preeminence. Yahshua said so. Yahshua put it that way. He put it in that order. So the Son has preeminence. Keep that in mind. The fifth trumpet is the first woe. Revelation 9, 1 to 12. This hasn't happened. The bottomless pit is opened at this trumpet, and the beast, the anti-Messiah, ascends from it to torment mankind for a period of 5 months. Now, these are events that are going to come to pass, and if you're still alive when they come to pass, you'll know what they are, because you are in the light, not in the darkness. So that's why we're going over these things. This is a scary thing. People have speculated that this bottomless pit, the mouth of it is over there in Iraq, where the Tigris and the Euphrates come together, and there used to be a couple of other rivers that came to. It kind of indicates that in the Scripture, because it talks about this beast being the king of Babylon. And Babylon is, after all, and always has been, right there in Iraq. That's where Babylon historically is. Is Yahweh, in agreement with that? Somewhere there's a bottomless pit that is going to be opened and release a supernatural being who we're going to see in the message in 2 weeks again. But that hasn't happened. But he's going to be able to torment mankind for 5 months. I mean, that's a finite period of time. You're going to know. Only the sealed servants of Yahweh are protected from his tortures. Now, they have put that in there, and I believe that is scriptural from Revelation chapter 12. And from Revelation 7 and 14, because that's one of the reasons for the sealing. There's a whole message in that, my friends. The sixth trumpet is the second woe. Revelation 9:13 to Revelation 11:14. During this woe, the following events occur. So keep in mind now, the beast is going to be torturing the earth for 5 months before this happens. So don't be looking for the 2 witnesses before that 5 months, because the 2 witnesses are not yet. During this woe, the second woe, the following events occur. 4 demons are released from the great river Euphrates, a spiritual concourse on which sits Satan's mighty capital city, Babylon the Great, leading an army of 200 million evil messengers, angels. They slaughter a third of mankind, Revelation 9:15. A third of mankind. Well, let's see. Population of the earth exceeds 8 billion now, doesn't it? I meant to look that up on the internet. You can find that on the internet. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm sure it's over 8 billion. So, what's a third of 8 billion? When it was 6, it was going to be 2 billion. So it's in excess of the population probably of China. That's a lot. Revelation 11:2 says that Jerusalem is going to be conquered by the nations or Gentile nations. Question is, what's a Gentile nation? Or is it the Arabs? I'm thinking the Arabs. And ruled for a period of 42 months. Revelation 11:2. How long is 42 months? 3.5 years. 3.5 years. During this seal, the 2 witnesses prophesy for 1,260 days. At the end of this time, they are killed in Jerusalem by the beast, the anti-Messiah, who ascended from the abyss at the first woe. The one that persecuted for 5 months, and now, after 3.5 years of the 2 witnesses, he kills them. The seventh trumpet is the third woe. During this woe, Revelation 11:15 to Revelation 19:21, which also lasts 3.5 years, there is a war in heaven, and I have a message about that. I've got several messages, but one is contained in the prophecy sandwich, in which I talked about Revelation 8 and 9, with a message by Brian in between about the Gog and Magog. You remember that? Okay, so here's that war in heaven. Satan and his messengers are cast down to the earth. Now, that message goes into what takes place in this war. And this war is not just, Satan goes up and is immediately cast down. Satan's going to occupy that throne for 3.5 years. The heavenly throne. Yahweh's going to allow it. That's in the book of Daniel. That's why Daniel was so sick when he saw this vision of what was taking place. It made him sick. It should make you sick to realize that Satan is going to sit on Yahweh's throne for 3.5 years. It is the time of Yahweh's wrath. The first 3.5 years of the tribulation are Satan's wrath. The last 3.5 years are Yahweh's wrath. And Yahweh is not going to be there on his throne. Don't know where he's going to be. And he's coming back. Like MacArthur. He's coming back. There's war in heaven. Satan empowers the anti-Messiah to rule all nations under, they say, a new world government. You ever heard that term before? Yeah, you have. At about this stage, the peoples of all nations are compelled to receive the mark of the beast. Without the mark, no one can buy or sell. It is this application of sanctions against individuals who refuse to accept anti-Messiah's mark that makes it impossible for obedient believers to remain in human society. Because if you're in human society at that time and you won't accept it, they're going to kill you. So you can't remain in human society if you don't take the mark. It appears that until such time as the mark becomes compulsory, no one has it. I agree with them on that. That's their summary, but I agree. I don't think anybody has the mark of the beast right now. Angered by the woman's refusal to worship him and unable to harm her because she is now protected in the great wilderness, which it does say that, and that's another message. Satan then turns on members of the remnant assembly still in human society. These believers probably consist of the 144,000 whom he can't touch because they're sealed, and those who had previously refused Yahweh's seal but now endeavor to wash their robes. That is, they now begin to keep the commandments they had previously violated. Then come the 7 last plagues under this woe, the third woe. Yahshua the Messiah returns to the earth at the end of this last trumpet. The dead in Messiah are raised to life, and the assembly in the wilderness is clothed with immortality, changed. The anti-Messiah is put to death at Messiah's return, and Hasatan is placed in the abyss for 1,000 years. And this, then, will begin the millennial reign of Yahshua. So that's the scenario that has to take place. And if you get that firmly in your mind, you won't be fooled. And the day won't come upon you as a thief in the night. And how are you sealed? Revelation chapter 12. Let's close with 3 verses from the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 11. These are the ones that Hasatan is pursuing when he is finally cast out in that war. cast away from the throne of Yahweh that he's been messing with for 3.5 years, and he is angry, and he comes down to get the assembly, the believers. They overcame him because of the blood of the say. I believe the Hebrew word is say there, which is not necessarily a lamb, but it's a sacrificial animal, lamb or a kid goat, just like we have in the Passover. And because of the word of their witness, and they did not love their lives to the death. They were willing to give up their lives for the witness of Yahshua. Chapter 14 in verse 12, a chapter that is definitely about the first fruits, the 144,000. Here is the endurance of the Kadoshim, the set-apart ones. Here's their marks. Here's how you can become one. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief, which is the obedience. Yeshua said, he that loves me keeps my commandments, right? The belief, and belief in Hebrew means to hear and obey. To hear in Hebrew means obey, to do. The belief of Yeshua. In Revelation 12:17, they are called the remnant. And finally, Revelation 22 and 14. Blessed are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. What city is it? Caleb, you know what city it is. What city is it? Jerusalem, the city where Yahweh's eye is and has always been and will always be. The capital city of the land that Yahweh promised to Abraham. So, if you know all of these things, happy are you if you do them. Ashrai. May Yahweh bless you and guard you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you and give you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his countenance over you and give you his peace. Yivarekeka Yahweh vayishmereka, Ya'er Yahweh panavaleka vikaneka, Yasa Yahweh panavaleka v'yasem l'ka shalom.